When the argument won in early 2026, a video made an argument. It said that a small Swedish fighter, designed for a Cold War doctrine most people had forgotten, was the most strategically relevant aircraft in the European theatre. It said that the Saab Gripen, with its highway basing, its 60-second scramble time, and its MBDA Meteor missiles, was the platform Ukraine actually needed. Not the F-16, not the F-35, the Gripen. When that video was made, Ukraine and Sweden had already signed a letter of intent in October 2025 for up to 150 Gripen E fighters. But a letter of intent is a promise, not a purchase. The argument was still contested. A few months later, it was vindicated. In June 2026, Saab finalized the first contract, 16 aircraft, $2.54 billion, first deliveries in 2027. The Meteor missiles are included. The pilot training has begun. Saab is preparing to open an assembly plant on Ukrainian soil. The argument won. This is what happened next, and what happens when a doctrine meets a war that is still being fought. Chapter 1. The prediction met. Before we get to what comes next, let's be precise about what was predicted, because the precision matters. The credibility of everything that follows depends on whether the original argument was right. The original Gripen Doctrine video made 4 core claims. 1. That the Gripen was the only Western fighter designed specifically for dispersed highway-based operations, and that this capability was the direct answer to Russia's demonstrated ability to destroy fixed air bases in the opening hours of a war. 2. That the MBDA Meteor missile carried by the Gripen possessed a no-escape zone significantly larger than the American AM-120 AMRAAM or the Russian R-77-1, and that this missile, not the aircraft itself, was the decisive capability. 3. That Saab's industrial participation model, the technology transfer deal that gave Brazil aerospace capability, not just aircraft, was the template for a distributed European defense industrial base that did not depend on American political cycles. And 4, that a coordinated Gripen corridor across NATO's eastern flank, from Finland's Arctic border to Romania's Black Sea coast, would represent the most cost-effective defensive air network in NATO history. Every single claim tracked to reality. Highway basing confirmed. Ukrainian pilots had already been training on road strip operations before the Gripen deal. The dispersed basing doctrine was not theoretical for them, it was how they had survived 3 years of Russian missile strikes on fixed air bases. The Gripen was the aircraft built for exactly what they were already doing. Meteor missiles confirmed. The first batch of Gripens for Ukraine will be equipped with Meteor long-range air-to-air missiles. The specific weapon the original video identified as decisive is the specific weapon being delivered. Industrial partnership confirmed. Saab is prepared to open a Gripen assembly plant in Ukraine, with joint production targeted by approximately 2033. The Eastern Flank Corridor, in progress. With Ukraine as the anchor operator, every nation on the Eastern Flank now has a neighbor operating the Gripen, running the same data links, flying the same tactics. But predictions, even correct ones, do not win wars. The deal is signed. The aircraft are coming. The question now is what they will actually face when they arrive, and whether the Gripen can solve the tactical problem that is currently destroying Ukraine from the sky. Chapter 2. The glide bomb crisis. To understand why the Gripen matters now, not in 2035, but now, you have to understand what Russia has done to the Ukrainian battlefield in the last 12 months. Russia has a problem. Artillery, the traditional backbone of Russian fire-centric doctrine, is dying. Not because the guns are gone, but because drones made them visible. Every time a howitzer fires, a drone finds it. The Ukrainian battlefield is the most surveilled in military history, and artillery that fires dies. Russia started the war with approximately 2,400 howitzers. Oryx has visually confirmed over 1,700 destroyed. Both sides pulled their artillery back from the front line. Drones and mortars partially filled the gap, but they carry small warheads. Even massed drone attacks lack the destructive power of sustained artillery fire. Russia needed a weapon that could deliver massed heavy firepower from outside the drone killing zone. They found it in their existing stockpile of Soviet-era dumb bombs. A glide bomb is a conventional bomb, the Fab 250, Fab 500, Fab 1500, Fab 3000, where the number is the nominal weight in kilograms, fitted with the Universal Gliding and Correction Module, the UMPK, folding wings, control surfaces, an inertial measurement unit, satellite guidance. You take a bomb that costs very little, bolt on a kit that costs somewhat more, and you have a precision-guided weapon that glides 60 to 95 kilometers from its release point. The launch aircraft never enters Ukrainian airspace. It releases from 60 to 70 kilometers behind Russian lines, sometimes more, and turns around. The bomb glides autonomously to its target. The aircraft is home before the bomb lands. In early June 2026, Russia launched over 1,800 glide bombs in a single week. A Fab 3000 carries 1.6 tons of explosive. They obliterate fortified positions. They destroy buildings. They kill in numbers that drones and mortars simply cannot match. And they are almost impossible to intercept once released. Shooting one down with a Patriot missile at $3 to $4 million per interceptor is economically unsustainable. You cannot spend $4 million to stop a bomb that cost $50,000. The only way to stop the glide bomb campaign is to stop the aircraft that carries it. And the aircraft that carries it, the Su-34 fullback, releases from behind Russia's integrated air defense network, flying in Russian airspace, shielded by S-400 surface-to-air missile systems with engagement ranges of up to 400 kilometers. Ukraine's current fighters, the F-16s and Mirage 2000s, are excellent aircraft, but they are Cold War-era designs. They lack active electronically scanned array radar. They lack the electronic warfare suite to operate effectively inside the Russian air defense umbrella. And they lack the missile range to reach a Su-34 releasing glide bombs from 70 kilometers behind the line. This is the gap. A Russian bomber operating from behind its air defense shield, lobbing precision munitions from a distance Ukraine's current fighters cannot reach, at a cost Ukraine's current air defenses cannot afford to intercept. This is the problem the Gripen was bought to solve. Chapter 3. Enter the Meteor. The Meteor is not a conventional air-to-air missile. It is the most capable beyond visual range air-to-air missile in Western operational service, and it is the weapon that makes the Gripen's tactical case. A conventional air-to-air missile, the American AIM-120 AMRAAM, the Russian R-77-1, uses a solid rocket motor. The motor burns for a few seconds, accelerates the missile to high speed, and then extinguishes. For the rest of its flight, the missile is coasting. It is losing energy with every second. It is slowing down. And as it slows, its maneuverability degrades. A target aircraft that detects the launch can turn, dive, and run. And if it can put enough distance between itself and the missile before the missile arrives, the missile, coasting and slow, cannot maneuver sharply enough to complete the intercept. This is why the no-escape zone, the range within which a target cannot escape regardless of maneuver, is the number that matters, not the maximum range. The Meteor uses a ramjet sustainer motor. A ramjet does not carry an oxidizer. It uses the forward motion of the missile to ram air into the combustion chamber, where fuel is injected and burned continuously. The motor does not burn out. It maintains thrust throughout the engagement. The missile does not coast. It does not lose energy. It arrives at the target at full speed, with full maneuverability, and it retains that energy in the terminal phase, the critical seconds when the target is maneuvering hardest to defeat it. According to MBDA, the Meteor possesses 3 to 6 times the no-escape zone of conventional air-to-air missiles in its class. Its operational range is officially undisclosed, but widely assessed to exceed 100 kilometers. Its speed exceeds Mach 4. What this means tactically, a Gripen E, operating inside Ukrainian airspace, carrying Meteor missiles, can engage a Russian Su-34 that is still behind its own lines. The Su-34 must reach its bomb release point, typically 60 to 70 kilometers from the front, to employ its glide bombs effectively. The Meteor's no-escape zone extends past that release point. The Gripen can kill the bomber before the bomber reaches the point where it can drop. You do not need to shoot down every Su-34. You need to make the release point so dangerous that the mission becomes unsustainable. You need to drive the launch line back to a distance where glide bombs fall short, or where the Su-34 cannot operate at all. The Gripen E's radar is the ES-05 Raven, an active electronically scanned array developed by Leonardo. The Raven uses a unique swashplate design that gives it a field of regard of plus or minus 100 degrees, significantly wider than fixed array systems. A Gripen pilot can detect and track a threat at extreme off-bore side angles. The aircraft does not need to be pointing at the target to maintain a radar track. And the Gripen E was designed with electronic warfare as a core capability, not an add-on. The system uses 3 types of signal generators. Digital radio frequency memory emulates the enemy radar signal and mirrors it back, so the operator sees an empty return. The Doppler generator creates false targets that constantly shift position, so a missile cannot lock on. The noise generator obscures the aircraft's existence entirely. This is the capability Ukraine bought. Not just an aircraft, a system. A radar that can find the target. An electronic warfare suite that can survive in the environment. A missile that can reach the target and kill it. And a platform that can do all of this from a highway strip that Russia cannot find, cannot target, and cannot preemptively strike. The glide bomb crisis has a solution. The solution is the Gripen Meteor combination. The question is when it arrives, and what Ukraine does until then. Chapter 4. The two-step reality gap. Here is the honest part of this story, the part that does not fit neatly into a procurement victory narrative. The first Gripens do not arrive tomorrow. The deal signed in June 2026 covers 16 Gripen E fighters. First deliveries are targeted for 2027. A parallel donation of 16 Gripen CD variants, the older model, is expected to arrive in early 2027 as trainers and stopgaps. The full 150 aircraft ambition is a multi-decade program. The Gripen E production line at Linköping is increasing capacity, but it cannot produce 150 aircraft overnight. This means there is a gap, a window of years, realistically 3 to 5, possibly longer, during which Ukraine is fighting the glide bomb campaign with the aircraft it already has. Cold War era F-16s, Cold War era Mirages, Soviet era Su-27s and MiG-29s maintained through heroic effort and cannibalization. The F-16s and Mirages are not useless. They can conduct air-to-ground strikes. They can perform air defense against cruise missiles and drones. What they cannot do, what they were never designed to do, is penetrate a modern integrated air defense system and kill a fighter operating behind it at long range. They lack the radar. They lack the electronic warfare. They lack the missile. So what does Ukraine do in the gap? First, the F-16s and Mirages continue to do what they can do. Second, ground-based air defense continues to evolve. Ukraine has been remarkably effective at combining Western systems like Patriot and NASAMS with Soviet-era systems and increasingly capable indigenous systems. Third, the Gripen CED stopgaps. They are not the E model, but they are Gripens. They can operate from highway strips. They can carry the Meteor. They are available now in a way that the E variants are not. They give Ukrainian pilots time to learn the platform before the E models arrive. Fourth, and this is the bottleneck nobody talks about, pilots. You can deliver aircraft faster than you can produce fighter pilots. A fighter pilot trained to Western standards requires approximately 2 years. A fleet of 150 Gripens requires 150 pilots minimum, plus reserves, plus instructors. The gap is the honest center of this story. The Gripen deal is not a magic wand. It commits Ukraine and Sweden to a path that leads over years to an air force that can drive the Russian launch line back, defend its own airspace, and enforce a future ceasefire from a position of strength rather than weakness. The question is whether the Allies, particularly the United States, are willing to help walk it faster. Chapter 5. The Canada play and the mixed fleet. This is where the story expands. From a bilateral Ukraine-Sweden deal to a global procurement argument that the United States has every reason to embrace. To understand why, we need to go to Canada. Canada committed in 2023 to buy 88 F-35A fighters. The F-35 is the most capable combat aircraft in the world, and for Canada, operating the same platform as its primary NORAD partner made strategic sense. But Canada has a problem that the F-35 does not solve. Canada's airspace is vast, the longest coastline in the world, an Arctic frontier that is becoming strategically contested, and a population density that means most of the country is empty. The F-35A costs approximately $30,000 to $50,000 per flight hour. Its mission-capable rate runs 30 to 50% globally. For a country that needs aircraft on alert across an entire continent, those numbers are a strategic problem. As of 2026, Ottawa appeared to be moving toward a mixed fleet, roughly 30 F-35As and approximately 60 Saab Gripen Airs. The logic is not anti-American. The logic is arithmetic. A smaller number of F-35s for the high-end stealth mission, penetration, first day of war strike, paired with a large number of Gripens for the daily, sustained, distributed air defense mission that actually consumes the majority of flight hours. This is the doctrine that changes everything, and it is the doctrine that should make Washington not just accepting of the Gripen, but actively enthusiastic about it. The F-35 is the most capable sensor platform in the Western inventory. Its sensor fusion is unmatched. Its stealth allows it to operate forward, in contested airspace, detecting and tracking threats without revealing its own position. It is the ultimate forward quarterback. But the F-35 has a limitation. Its internal weapons bays are small. To maintain stealth, it must carry weapons internally, and the internal bays cannot accommodate the long-range, ramjet-powered MBDA Meteor. Carrying the Meteor would require external pylons, which would compromise the F-35's radar cross-section and defeat its primary advantage. In a mixed fleet, this limitation becomes a strength. The F-35 acts as the forward sensor node, the invisible quarterback. It detects, tracks, and classifies threats at long range. It passes that targeting data over the Link 16 data link, which the Gripen is natively equipped to receive, to a Gripen E loitering safely behind it, outside the most contested airspace. The Gripen is the missile truck. It carries the Meteor on external hardpoints, no stealth compromise, because the Gripen is not a stealth aircraft. It launches the missile from a position of relative safety, guided by the F-35's targeting data. The Meteor flies to the target. The threat is destroyed. The F-35 never transmitted on a frequency that could be detected. The Gripen launched from a position that was never within the enemy's engagement envelope. And here is why this should make Washington enthusiastic. Many nations, Tier 2 and Tier 3 air forces across Europe, the Indo-Pacific, the Middle East, look at the F-35 and face a binary choice. They can buy a small number of F-35s that they can afford to operate, but cannot keep sufficiently airborne. Or they can buy nothing. The mixed fleet model changes the equation. A nation that cannot afford 64 F-35s can afford 24 F-35s paired with 48 Gripens. The total capability is higher than either fleet alone. The F-35 gets sold, a sale that might not have happened if the choice was all or nothing. The Gripen gets sold. Lockheed Martin wins. Saab wins. The alliance gets a more capable, more sustainable, more resilient air posture. The pitch that should go to Washington, the Gripen does not compete with the F-35. The Gripen enables F-35 sales that would not otherwise happen. Canada is the proof of concept. If the mixed fleet model works there, it becomes the template for every nation that needs both capability and sustainability. The United States, far from opposing the Gripen, should be actively enabling it. Because every Gripen sold alongside an F-35 order is an F-35 sale that might not have happened otherwise. Which brings us to the one thing standing in the way. Chapter 6. The Arsenal of Europe. The Gripen is marketed as the sovereign fighter, the independent choice, the aircraft that frees a nation from dependence on American political approval. That marketing is half true. Every Gripen ever built runs on an American engine. The A, B, C, and D models use the Volvo RM12, a license-built derivative of the General Electric F404. The E and F models, the version every new customer is buying, use the GE F414 GE39E, the same engine family as the United States Navy's F/A-18 Super Hornet. And it is, under United States export law, subject to American re-export control. Under the International Traffic in Arms Regulations, ITAR, every Gripen export has required United States authorization. For 25 years, that authorization was a rubber stamp. The Gripen's reputation as the independent fighter took hold precisely because the American veto was never visible. In 25, that changed. For the first time in 25 years, the United States said no. Colombia had selected the Gripen E over the French Rafale and the American F-16 in a deal worth roughly €3 billion. Defense outlets reported that the United States intended to withhold the F414 re-export license. The deal stalled. The leverage that had sat invisible for a quarter century became suddenly, visibly real. The same leverage now hangs over Ukraine. The same leverage hangs over Canada's mixed fleet pivot. The same leverage hangs over every future Gripen sale. This is the moment for a strategic decision in Washington. Not a decision to block, a decision to enable. If the United States wants to help Europe help itself, if it wants the mixed fleet model that sells more F-35s globally, if it wants Russia's glide bomb campaign to end, there are three concrete things it can do. 1. Fast-track the F414 engine export license for Ukraine. Make the authorization automatic, not discretionary, for NATO partners and allies. There is no strategic reason for delay. The license should be a formality, not a leverage point. 2. Authorize GE F414 manufacturing technology transfer to Saab or to a European consortium so that the engine, the one American component that creates a structural dependency, can eventually be produced outside the United States. It costs the United States nothing in the near term and eliminates the single point of failure in the long term. 3. Lead the diplomatic charge to permanently seize frozen Russian sovereign assets and direct them to Ukraine's defense procurement. The Gripen deal is already being financed partly through frozen Russian assets. Russia is literally paying for the aircraft being bought to defeat it. And behind all of this, the Saab assembly plant in Ukraine. a fighter jet production line on Ukrainian soil targeted by 2033. If a production line can operate in a country under active missile attack, distributed across hardened facilities supplied by a European industrial network, then the sovereignty dividend thesis is proven beyond any peacetime scenario. The proceeds stay in the European defence base. The jobs stay in Europe. The capability stays resident in the nations most directly threatened. This is the vision. Not the United States withdrawing from Europe. Not the United States doing everything itself. The United States as the welcome helper, the enabler, clearing the bureaucratic path, providing the engine technology, leading the financial framework, and then stepping back to let Europe build the shield that Europe needs. The Gripen does not replace the F-35. The Gripen makes the F-35 more effective. Every Gripen sold alongside an F-35 order makes the alliance stronger. Every F-414 license cleared removes a bottleneck. Every frozen Russian ruble redirected to Ukrainian defense makes the aggressor pay for the consequences of its aggression. The original video argued that the Gripen was the most strategically relevant aircraft in the European theatre. The deal was signed. The argument was vindicated. This video argues something larger, that the Gripen, enabled by the United States and paired with the F-35, is the foundation of a Western air power doctrine that is more capable, more sustainable, and more affordable than any pure fleet alternative. A doctrine where the United States is the enabler, not the sole provider. Where Europe builds its own shield. Where the burden is shared, not offloaded. Where Russia's glide bomb campaign meets its answer, and the answer is a missile that does not stop flying until it hits its target. One aircraft was designed to survive. The other was designed to dominate. Together, they are the doctrine that neither could be alone. And the doctrine, vindicated, enabled, and built, is the one that wins. The Gripen Doctrine Vindicated.